You're listening to Coming of Cage, a Nicolas Cage podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Coming of Cage podcast. I am your host, Derek, and I've got my co-host, my partner in crime, my buddy, Ryan. How you doing?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. How you been?
Surviving, just like all
Sir.
the rest of us, like everybody in the world.
Ideally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody who's not dead.
That's right. Yeah. So what are we doing? We talk Nicolas Cage movies. Nick Cage, he is our man. We review his films and talk about them in great detail. And this week we are talking about the 2021 flick Prisoners of the Ghostland, which is noted as a fantasy horror thriller.
This was one that I had been wanting to see. There were a few Nick Cage movies that came out in 2021. I believe Jiu-Jitsu is another one. Maybe that came out
around the same time.
around the same time.
Yeah.
That's another one I'm looking forward to seeing because they just sounded so wacky that I figured they had to be really good.
Jiu-Jitsu was 2020 technically.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, around the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is basically just real short synopsis. A notorious criminal must break an evil curse in order to rescue an abducted girl who has mysteriously gone missing.
Sounds like a pretty reasonable movie from that description.
Yeah, I was originally confused by the abducted girl who has gone missing because she's really gone missing twice is really what's happened in this movie. But yeah, it stars Nick Cage, of course, and Sofia Boutella, who I am a fan of. And those are really the two kind of names that I think most people would recognize.
Yeah, I don't think they would recognize anybody else.
Yeah. So the movie was directed by Sion Sono. And in fact, it was delayed a full year because the director had a heart attack and they had to hold off on production. So this one was a little long in the making. And yeah, so the way we do this, Ryan takes notes. He's very, studious, and I drink soda, and then we talk about his notes.
Right. And I got to be honest, on this one, there was so much stuff going on, and I can only write so fast. I had to like pace myself and not necessarily take a note of every single thing that I really wanted to, because this podcast would be 3 hours if I notated literally everything.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I also think that it would be impressive if you could notate everything, because there are some things that I might consider inexplicable.
Well, and that would be why I would notate it, because I want to discuss why the fuck it's in this movie. And there's a lot of that already in here that I did get down.
Good.
I will say during this movie, I had no idea. I didn't watch a trailer or anything. I mean, I had heard about it and heard the synopsis. I heard a different synopsis.
Oh, okay.
The one I heard had something about a leather suit, explosive leather suit. And I was like, okay, Nick Cage in an explosive leather suit. I'm definitely wanting to see that. And this is way weirder than I thought it would be. I'm getting that it seems to be a pretty regular thing, actually. Like, directors just get Nick Cage and like decide they need to just go crazy when they have him. When in fact, some of his best stuff is, dialed back.
Yeah.
A few notches from full Cage.
Yeah, man. This is a strange one. And to be fair, the writer, Reza Safi, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, spent 17 years trying to get this movie made. And It was originally supposed to film in Mexico. They had to move it to Japan after the director, I said, had that heart attack. It's just kind of a wild ride to get this movie produced. It was produced, by the way, by XYZ, was one of the production companies. They also produced Mandy, as well as a couple other films. So there's a little bit of a connection there.
I mean, thematically, I feel like there's, and cinematically, there's connection to several other movies we've watched. But I will get into that. Okay, so my first note for Prisoners of the Ghostland. So many intros. There's like 10 different distinct title screens for this movie. And it probably has to go with you said it took 17 years or whatever to make. it probably had to do with the fact that he had to get funding from a totally large group of people, and that's why there's so many intro screens.
There are a ton of production companies involved in this film. Like if you just go on IMDb, there are there are 8 production companies attached to this movie.
Yeah, what a
You know,
nightmare that must have been, getting things approved by 8 different production companies whenever you like decided to change something or do something.
right? Now, we've seen a few of these with him before. He's definitely worked with Saturn Films and Untitled Entertainment and XYZ, like I mentioned. But Booze, Booze, Bang, Bang was one that I was not familiar with.
They probably donated like $20.
Uh,
Like whatever the minimum was to get their name in the title card.
but like the most jarring thing was that some of those production intros had their own music and others didn't. So there'd just be randomly some music for 20 seconds before
Right.
they move to somebody else's.
Yeah, I didn't know if the movie was ever actually going to start. I feel like the movie would have been 30 minutes less runtime if they had just taken out the intros.
Maybe it hasn't started yet.
I don't know. I hope it has. Otherwise, I've been having like fever dreams since I pressed play. Okay, so my next note is, what the hell is this bank? So to start us out, if you don't know going into this, which I did not, this is a like, how do I say this nicely? This is like a stylized, I think is the nicest way, because that doesn't mean it's good or bad, but stylized movie.
Yes.
There's a very specific vision that one person had, and everybody else was probably going, what in the fuck are you on drug-wise right now? But you're the person in charge, so we have to do what you say. I'm guessing that's how it went with the vision.
I think that's fair.
But so the intro is basically this Nick Cage and one other guy that's, you can tell is going to be a bad guy in the very beginning because he just looks like a bad guy. Spoiler alert, kind of. But they go in to rob this bank, but this bank is like no bank that you've ever seen before. Like everything's white. There's a ice cream gumball machine or something. I don't really know, like maybe mochi or whatever it's called.
I mean, think it's just supposed to be gumballs.
But they're really weird.
They're
and
really weird.
There's a kid getting gumballs out of it, or whatever it is out of it, and he has a littler kid's mask on the back of his head.
There's a little bit of that. There's another girl in the bank who's wearing the mask like on her face.
Yeah. And the kid's like offers the evil looking bank robber,
Psycho is his name.
Psycho, offers him some like whatever this is, gumballs or something. And you don't really see what happens at this point. But the bank is very stylized, very white, very like, you know, like when you see the architect in the Matrix or whatever, and it's or like the, you know, that kind of white walls everywhere, that kind of thing, right? Is that,
yeah,
that sounds right? Yeah,
I think that's fair. I also like, and maybe it was just me, the little kids wearing this very specific sweater that I swear is from another movie that like an adult wears. And I'm wondering if it was supposed to be like an homage to that, but I can't place it. So I don't know. Did that catch your eye? No,
okay. Not really. All right. And then we start to get into like the meat of this movie. And so my next note is, please don't let this be another white savior Cage movie, because they don't really give a location, but it's very heavily implied that it's somewhere Asian, or, you know, or do they give a location?
They never give a location.
They call it parts of it like the Ghostland, and
there is the Ghostland, and then they do say the name of the town in like the last 30 seconds.
It's like Samurai Town or something, yeah, right?
But like that's at the end of the movie. The movie is over at this point. So it's like, I think it's supposed to be in Japan because most of the background characters are Japanese. Japanese is the only other language spoken other than English. And the buildings are like almost like Japanese Western caricature mashups.
Yes.
So I think it's supposed to be Japan.
Yes.
But basically every character of significance, except for a couple of exceptions, is a white dude.
Well, yeah, but all the background characters are seemingly of Asian descent. Like, yes. And a lot of like the people working for the white characters
Yes.
are of Asian descent.
Right.
Um, yeah, so yes, it is basically another Nick Cage white savior movie, except that the person that he's helping is also white. I don't really know how this falls into that. I
This
mean,
is so
for me, it
confusing.
seems like a white savior kind of movie, but
It's white.
whatever.
It's a white savior movie, but the bad guy is also the white guy. Like there's four people in power in this movie. All four of them are white dudes.
Yeah, and the
So,
daughter is white, and Nick Cage, yeah.
well, Sofia Boutella is not white.
Well, okay, she looked white in the in the movie, I'll say, but
She's not. Yeah. I don't recall where her background, but she's not white. But like,
she's not Asian.
is she
At
not?
least I don't think so. She didn't look like she was of Asian descent to me, but maybe she is. I don't want to assume
But
anything
either
about her.
either way, like
Yeah.
the four white dudes are the four people who have some semblance of power or control in the film
Yes. And everybody else is working for them,
in
basically.
some capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, white savior movie, maybe. I don't really know what what the qualifications are. It is a white guy that is a savior in a primarily Japanese seemingly uh, area. So take that for how you will. And then I can't remember who's walking, but somebody's walking by a bunch of women that seem to be behind bars. Some of them are not behind bars. And so
Uh-huh.
my next note was, are these girls in jail? Which, yes, Ryan, it's called Prisoners of the Ghostland. So I assume that they are prisoners.
So this is where it
Except this
gets
isn't actually the Ghostland. This is
right.
the
This is Samurai
Samurai
Town,
Town. Yeah.
but they are still prisoners just in a different way. So like it's
But they
supposed
are
to
behind bars.
they are. I think it was supposed to be a caricature of like a red light district kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think like so little is really explained and the stuff that is explained makes so little sense. So I'm not really
Yes, and
sure.
we're not going to attempt to because we'll be doing this for hours if
You're
we
right.
have to try and make sense of it. So yes, I'm sure there's deeper themes. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not great at picking up stuff like that. Derek is way smarter than me, so I rely on him to do that. But
Please.
even then, he's struggles with it sometimes. So I don't think that there was necessarily much in the way of deeper themes in this movie. I think the director wanted people to think that there was deeper themes in this movie. There's a lot of focus on time and clocks.
Yes.
Like that seems to be a theme, but I didn't really get any kind of message regarding, you know what I mean? Like there wasn't like the G.I. Joe thing where they like have a message each episode that you're supposed to figure out because of the story. I didn't get that.
I thought I did, and then the movie told me I was wrong later.
Yes.
So
Yeah. It was clear about what it wasn't. Yeah. So my next note is, what time period is this? Because
yeah.
that's very unclear.
Well, it's at least the 90s
It
because of the
seems
Celica
post-apocalyptic.
in a way, right? Like
There are like civilizations.
there are civilizations. We know that the 90s happened.
Yes. But we don't really know anything beyond that.
That's about like because we don't really see a lot of technology. No one's got a
No.
smartphone or even like a cell phone.
There's a lot of swords
There's a
and
lot of
a
swords.
lot of guns, but like less use than the swords
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
general.
I guess
Uh,
I didn't get a good look in the beginning when the three women escape, Sofia Boutella and the other two. They do get in a car that looked fairly
it
modern.
was European of some kind, and I'm not great with European cars. Maybe it was like an Audi or some,
I
maybe not
thought
an
it was a
Audi.
Volvo, but
It could have been a Volvo. Yeah, it didn't have the Audi logo.
it looked like a 21st century car though.
Maybe a Saab. It kind of looked like a Saab shape.
Maybe it was a Saab, yeah, but it was
In any
definitely
case, yeah, it
yeah,
was definitely like late 90s probably. I don't really know. I don't know European cars. I'm really making that up. So yeah, we don't really know what time period it is. It's very ambiguous. Again, it's one of those things that we're not going to like try and explain because they were okay. So I'm going to just say that I think this whole movie, it felt to me like the director was given a whole bunch of toys, Nick
yeah.
Cage being one of them, money being one of them, and he's just like, I want to make people feel really weird. And like he's like, what's the weirdest thing we can have in this scene? And he just went with that every time
I mean, I
because
think that
there
that's
was no
fair.
plan. There was no
No.
plan to any
Well,
of this. It
like
felt like
so like for example, let me ask you, how long was Nick Cage like
Jailed.
jailed?
I have no idea. It's ambiguous. We don't know.
Okay, because there's
How
like
much time takes place during the whole movie? It said one thing and then it seems like it's different. I mean,
well, like, and I guess this is jumping ahead a little bit, but when you find out that Sofia Boutella's character was a young girl during the bank robbery, so there's like 10 years of a jump, give or take, at
mm-hmm,
some point.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
we don't know when Nick Cage was arrested, so we don't know if that was his whole time was just in a cell for 10 years.
Yes, I
Which
guess we didn't cover that. I mean, he was being held by
a sheriff
a
in
sheriff.
Samurai Town.
Yeah, and just kind of kept there, yeah, like you said, for an ambiguous. So that's why we're in Samurai Town. We're
Right.
kind of seeing like Nick Cage's character, we're kind of seeing Samurai Town.
But he's locked up. His hands have obviously been in shackles for a long time. He's dirty and gross, but he's perfectly shaved. His
Yes,
beard is gorgeous. His
groomed,
beard looks so good in this
perfectly
movie.
groomed.
But like I don't know, like was he? I just honestly like when the movie begins, I just thought it was a couple of days.
Yeah, it's not. It's a long
It's
time.
not. It's years.
Um, so we still haven't really seen the main crux of the movie yet, but my next note is WTF singing heads in holes. So
Oh yeah, that
they
was
are
weird.
walking by this part, I think in Samurai Town,
Uh
where
huh.
there's like 30 holes in a wall that are maybe like the size of a 5-gallon bucket, if you know how like that circumference, with like women's heads poking through with like curtains around them. And so it looks like the heads are just floating and they're like singing and like moving around in unison.
Like
And
clock heads. Like they're like they're supposed like it's all about clocks. All the songs are
time
about
and clocks.
clocks. They
Yeah.
keep weird sayings about clocks. It was creepy. I'll say that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's designed to be, I guess, a horror movie. It wasn't really creepy to me as much as it was just weird.
Yeah.
Like they did it just to be weird. And I kind of got that same feeling with some of the stuff in Dog Eat Dog and Mandy. So, I mean, this wasn't that crazy in the sense that, you know, they all these directors that like to work with Nick Cage seem to just want to like have people think they're weird and edgy. But yeah, that was my next note.
Well, they are
Okay. And
weird.
so then we get introduced to the governor, who is this Colonel Sanders looking person in a full white suit, um, red gloves, very, again, very stylized.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in a car driving up with probably 20 girls, women, all around him, clapping and singing, just clapping, I
No,
think,
they were saying something about they were repeating the word governor over and over
and
again.
clapping
Yeah.
in a rhythm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that was my next note is why would a governor have clapping girls accompany him? And I mean, obviously as you get to know the governor, you realize that it's why he does that, because he just feels like he owns everything and it's a show of power essentially. At least that's what I took from it. And so he comes into town and he tells the sheriff to bring him to me or something like that. And so they go get Nick Cage and we get our first sighting of 50 plus year old Nick Cage butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I'm not sure if that was a stunt butt or not. I'm pretty sure that was actual. I don't want to get too deep into it, the butt, but it seemed to me that it was a believable 50-year-old man rear
I don't
end.
see him as being the kind of person who would use a stunt butt. That's just not the vibe I get from Nick.
Fair enough. I mean, we do feel like we know him on a very personal level. So that's fair. So then we get like a speech from the governor. And I mean, clearly you feel the same way based on that, that groan. My next note was, is the governor actor bad on purpose? Because
Man,
I don't even know who this actor is. And I'm sorry, maybe you were being really good in this movie because you were trying to act like a bad actor. That's probably very difficult.
his
If
name
that's
is
the case.
Bill Mosley,
Hmm.
who I mean, I don't think I know him from anything. He's really done just like a ton of horror movies.
Okay. That makes
Um,
sense because neither of us are very big into horror movies.
yeah, I don't
But
think he's been in anything else I've ever seen.
he basically gives a weird speech. I don't even remember what it was about necessarily, but I don't know. Yeah, every bit of dialogue that this character had was seemingly what the writer thought would be the worst thing to say in this circumstance. Like, what would make this guy? I mean, the only thing he didn't do is twirl his mustache with his fingers, and he did have a mustache,
He
so
did.
he could have done that. But they basically were going like they had a gist. I'm assuming in the writers' room they had a gist of what they wanted to be said, the message to come across, and they were like, "What's the worst way we can say this?" Both in the writing and in the character development. And they tried to do both of those things. Do you not agree with that?
Oh no, no, no. I think that's a very fair assessment.
Okay. And do you think he was acting bad on purpose or was he just a bad actor?
Here's the thing. I mean, he's been in like 100 things,
But they're all horror
but
movies,
they're
which
all horror
is
movies.
notorious for not having necessarily the best actors in horror movies. Not
He's
always true.
he's been in 121 productions. I mean, so I got to imagine that a lot of this. Oh, he was in House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Reject. He plays Otis. So I guess I have seen him, but um, you know, I imagine that this was all that stylization that they were going for like these really weird, over the top caricature type characters that like I think they were supposed to be caricatures, but instead of being caricatures of like a real person, they just became like jokes of themselves.
Okay. That is probably possible. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you're giving the director a lot of credit, like more credit than what I'm giving him. You're making it seem like he actually put thought into it, and I'm
Well,
making it seem
because
like
I think he did put thought into it, and like this is coming from someone who has created a lot of failed creative projects. Okay, just because you put a lot of thought and effort into something doesn't mean that those were good ideas.
right. That's true.
Right, but it doesn't mean you weren't trying. This movie doesn't come off as lack of effort. It comes off maybe even as trying too hard, of like desperation to get this idea out there.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's your take on it. I feel like that's a fair take, whether it's true or not.
I don't know.
We're trying to give the guy credit because
Well, because like
yeah.
this director has directed, he's directed 59 movies.
And I can
Yeah.
tell you after watching this, how many of those movies I would want to watch. It would be zero. That would be the answer. So then we get like, so the governor gives Nick Cage's character this leather suit. And you don't really get to see it at this point. I do think it's worth pointing out at this point. I did see this before the movie that this was the case because I had pulled it up on IMDb, but this movie was actually nominated for Best Costume Design in the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards. And so when I saw that before the movie, I was like, these costumes must be pretty decent. And I have to say that I was not a fan of these costumes. I'm not usually a fan of highly stylized costumes, but like, so Nick Cage's character gets this leather suit, and without getting too deep into it, I don't want to jump too far ahead. It has some weird orbs on it. It has like a Fallout Pip-Boy in the arm, and it has a neck bomb, like a neck piece in the front, a collar piece. Other than that, it's kind of an ill-fitting leather suit.
I I wonder if it was nominated for the mannequins
Those were
because
cool creations for sure, but I mean, I guess they were costumes technically.
right, because that's my only thought is like those at least like that's something I haven't seen before, and that was creepy and kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I could at least understand them nominating that. But yeah, I
Right.
mean the suit, the leather suit that Nick wears, which by the way, we haven't said his character name because he doesn't have one. He's just referred to as Hero.
Right.
Um, like yeah, it's not good. Like
Yeah. It's
it's
in it.
just
Yeah. So I do want to say that before he gets the suit, he's basically standing there naked,
yeah, he has like a cloth like underwear
diaper,
on.
but then that
Yeah,
gets removed.
it does. Yeah.
And he's surrounded by like everybody in this town, including like schoolgirls and things like that. It's a very weird, uncomfortable scene.
Yeah, there's a woman who's sketching it as if she's like in a courtroom or
Right.
something, and she starts erasing it so she can sketch him nude instead of
Yes.
in the
Once the
underwear.
diaper is removed. Yeah.
Yeah, which was it's strange.
And she seems very young. I don't know. It was a little weird. And there's a fight scene in here too that didn't really make any sense to me. Most of the fight scenes in this movie did not make any sense to me.
Yeah, so they're
Why they're
surrounded by
fighting,
like
you know?
everybody in town, and like so everyone's got a gun out on Nick Cage. They're all like just ready to shoot him, even though if everybody starts shooting, then like half of these people are gonna die. But yeah, he like kind of sort of fights some of them, even though they all have guns. None of them use, like you said earlier, none of them use them. They just
Yeah.
use their swords.
And then there's this one swordsman that works for the governor that is apparently the best of all the swordsmen. And his sisters.
Yasujiro.
Yeah, and oh, that's another thing. I really hated the way the governor said his name. So like, I think it's made. He said so. He has like a southern accent. I really think that there's some that they were trying to get like the Colonel Sanders vibe going. I mean,
Yeah, I
with the
think so.
southern accent and the white suit, I don't really know why. It's not really relevant to the movie at all. But he
Well,
says Yasujiro with a like southern drawl, and it makes it sound almost like he's, I don't know. It doesn't sound right.
yeah,
it's off-putting the way it sounds.
I think like what
It's poor pronunciation.
the governor to me came off like a plantation owner,
Yes,
basically,
I
right?
agree.
Is what they were going for. So this to me is like it's like a really bad like Django knockoff,
Kind of, yeah.
right? You know, you think about like Leo's character in Django,
Yeah.
like that's what the governor was supposed to be, I
Right, but they
think.
couldn't afford Leo.
Right, but Leo was busy that week, so
Right, right. I'm sure he would have jumped at the chance to work with Nicolas Cage. So yeah, he's naked and then there's a fight scene and Yasujiro goes and kills a bunch of guys for some reason. I'm not really sure why. He works for the governor. Seemingly all those people there were like underneath the governor. It was, I don't know. Maybe I'm too stupid to figure out what was going on, but
well, no, because like he and Nick Cage keep having these moments where they because Yasujiro never speaks. So they
yeah.
keep he and Hiro keep having these moments where they like look at each other knowingly. And so like I don't know if they were supposed to have
It seemed like it
already
was trying to imply something, but I
right.
don't really get what it was. Maybe it was supposed to be like warriors respect each other, but Nick Cage's character was not really a warrior. So, in fact, he gets his ass kicked like 20 times in this movie
But he's
until the
supposed to
very
be a
end.
warrior though, because that's what the governor is like hiring him for. Because
No, he's a bank robber.
that's what we saw, but that's not what they say.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Okay,
know, man.
we're just going in circles about this, but yes.
Oh,
So yes, there's a fight and he's naked. Um and did I already talk about the creepy group singing?
yeah.
So while he's putting on the leather suit, yeah, this whole group starts singing the same song, and it's really super weird and off-putting. Which most of this movie seems like it's just meant to make you feel uncomfortable and just be slightly off-putting, and that's how they got the horror title, I guess. I don't know. So he puts on the full suit, and he leaves it unzipped down to like his navel for a while, which I'm okay with.
It's the evil Knievel look.
Yeah, and so the governor explains that these like red orbs all over his suit are mini explosives and that they'll be activated if he does certain things. For example, he has one on each testicle that if he gets an erection or like, I thought it was more like if he tries to rape the person,
Yeah.
then he gets gets an explosive, but I guess it's just like if he gets aroused. That was a little ambiguous too. We'll get into that more later. Trust me. Of course, that comes back into play. But then there's some on his arms.
He's got
I
one
think
on
that,
each arm, one on each testicle, and one around his neck.
yes. Well, it's not an orb on his neck though. It's just
No.
like there is a bomb there though.
Yeah.
And the arms, I think the condition was like if he's aggressively like grabbing at somebody, they go
No,
off.
just a woman.
Oh, just
A
the one specific
defenseless
one.
woman. Somehow the suit knows if
Yeah, I
it's
was
a
gonna say the
defenseless
tech
woman
is really all over the place in this movie.
because he fights lots of people and it's
Right, that's true.
fine, but he gets mad at her at one point, and you know that's a problem.
Right. And so the governor explains all this. Nick Cage clasps the neck piece in dramatically, and the governor goes, "Looks like it fits you well," but like when you see shots of him wearing it, it doesn't look like it fits him at all. It looks like they made it for an actor that's 30 pounds heavier than him, and it's a leather suit, or
It
probably
must have been
not
so
not
hot.
actually. It probably wasn't actually leather, but leather looking material. So it's not like, I don't know. It's not super stretchy or forgiving. But if you made the costume for that movie, I'm sorry. I'm sure that's what you were told to do, and I'm sure the construction was wonderful. But yeah, it did not fit him super well. And then they bring out his car. They're giving him a car to do this, and basically they say, you get 5 days to go and rescue my daughter, and if you don't get her in 5 days, then the next thing is going to blow up. You're going to die. And if you have my daughter speak her name into the Pip Boy on your arm, then you get 2 more days. Did I cover it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then they drive the car out, and they're like really proud of it. It does like a drift. And if you watch the last episode or listen to the last episode of the Gone in 60 Seconds one, Derek and I are car enthusiasts to varying degrees. And we're both fans of Toyota as a manufacturer. And this was a Toyota Celica. It was like a sixth generation,
like
94 to 94 to 99 was when they made that one.
Yeah.
Or 94, 98. And and I thought maybe it was like the GT4 version that was all-wheel drive and turbo, but nope, it was like
Just
the
a regular
front-wheel drive. I'm pretty sure this was like
black.
one of the people that worked on the movie's cars. It was
Yeah,
like
I mean,
their
probably
personal car, because it's not like an exotic or rare car.
No, but yeah, it would be considered an import. It's a right
It's
driver.
an import.
So
it's an import here, but in
Right.
Japan it would not be. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so it must have just been one of their cars. But I got excited because I personally love Celicas. I'm like, oh, cool, a Celica.
Yeah, that was my next note. He's driving a Celica, and then he gets into the Celica, and then immediately jumps out of the Celica and starts riding a bike. So my next note was, he's driving a Celica. Nope, never mind.
Yep.
And he rides the bike for
a while,
an undetermined amount of time until
until
Yasujiro in a bell, but Yasujiro shows up with the car again, and then like stares at him and gets out. And then Nick Cage drives away in the car again.
Well, because they have another knowing, look at each other, and Nick Cage just goes, I guess I don't have a lot of time, huh?
Yeah. Because he was apparently going to ride his bike all the way to the Ghostlands, which is an indeterminate amount of distance. So it may or may not have taken a long time. It's hard to say.
It's unclear.
Yeah. So then I put back in the Celica, and it's wrecked because he immediately wrecks it 2 seconds later, which is funny because actually, like, if you see shots of it later in the movie, it actually isn't wrecked. It's like they carefully drove this car up this way. You can see the car where it's like supposed to be wrecked, and it's pristine, like it's waxed, it's clean. There's not even dust on it. I'm like, man, it was actually in pretty good shape. I was surprised, but
it's somebody's real car.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were just like, we'll be extra careful with it. I know there's a wreck scene, but we're just gonna like drive it up on this foam pad.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. I promise. Yeah. This my next note is, this movie makes Dog Eat Dog seem normal, which may not mean much to you if you didn't watch Dog Eat Dog. But being as Derek and I watched it and reviewed it, and realized and saw how weird it was. That's saying a lot, because we talked a lot about how weird that movie was.
I feel bad for how much I trashed on that movie.
After seeing this one?
After seeing this one.
I will say that we do get way more like caginess in this one than we did in Dog Eat Dog. In Dog Eat Dog, the craziness was not around Nick Cage's character. It was around Willem Dafoe's character mostly. And this one, it was around everybody. Like, let's get real. But Cage, really does his job in this stuff. Random creepy person group shot. There was like a shot of like ruins with like 5 random people dressed in white with like weird face paint on.
Yeah, we see that exact same shot like 3 or 4 times.
We do, and it's kind of explained that those are the ghosts of the Ghostland or whatever. But at this point, it's literally just a shot, like with no context to either of the shots before or after. It's like a 5-second shot of these people, and then it goes to the next scene that has no relevance to that. So it's very out of place.
There's the ghosts of the Ghostland, there's the prisoners of the Ghostland, and then there's like the zombies of the Ghostland, and I guess they're a different group.
I guess the relevance to it, you don't really know in that moment, but when Nick Cage wrecks the Celica, and he like falls out of it and he's injured, he seems to, when he's unconscious, have visions of these ghosts.
Yes.
And they're not just those 5 creepy people. There's more later, but in this moment, you don't know that's what's happening. this
Right.
vision or whatever. There's nothing, when you get the dream sequence, like wavy lines and stuff, there was none of that. It
I
was
think
just
that's the
another sharp cut.
I think that's a good way to describe the movie. In the moment, you don't get it.
Right. And you still don't get it at the end of the movie. I mean, you understand it a little better, but you just don't understand what the whole thing was. Okay, so then we get the 10-minute shot of Nick Cage being wheeled through the Ghostlands.
Bring out your dead.
Honestly, like this movie, if they didn't just have like long shots of people traveling, I feel like it would have been I don't know, 70-minute movie,
It
maybe.
wasn't that long to begin with. It's only like an hour 45.
Yeah. But I mean, it would have been much shorter without, I mean, I feel like it was literally like 8 minutes of him on a cart, like the bring out your dead type cart from Monty Python, but him just like laying there and getting essentially a unconscious, semi-conscious tour of the Ghostlands. It was just
Yeah.
like a way to show off random set pieces and random costumes for,
So many people in costume, man. Like and like most of these are not good looking costumes. Like they're supposed to kind of look like trash people, right?
right.
Right? Like this is like this wasteland that they're all trapped in supposedly.
And there's a
With
person named Ratman here. I just want to make
literally
sure we're clear on that. That's his name.
Rat Man and his Rat Men.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Bobbin is sidekick. Um,
Oh man. I
but
yeah.
yeah, literally like just a long shot, not like a single take shot. There's a lot of cuts, but like just a shot of him being pulled
Mhm.
through. I feel like it was real time.
Yeah.
Like
And
it was, the actual amount of time that it took for his character to travel that far is how long that shot was, I feel like.
and there's another person on a cart next to him and it's a woman and it's one of the three women from the beginning of the movie, but
That was with the governor's daughter,
granddaughter.
granddaughter. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
but even though like that's not even true. Bernice is her name, Sofia
Yeah.
Boutella's character. And so this other girl, like I don't know that we ever learned her name and I don't really know what happens to her after this scene. She just is kind of gone again, but she was there
Yeah,
for a
she
minute.
was. Um, then it seems like English should not be the primary language here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep.
But that's a similar one to what we had in Outcast, where everybody spoke crystal clear English. At least in this movie, there's like sometimes they speak Japanese and sometimes they speak English, but it seems like everybody here speaks English, despite where the where this movie takes place.
There was some bad stuff in there. Like there's a point where Nick Cage, he's he in that fights or first fight scene, he's like saying hi yeah, but he's like hi fucking yeah. Like that's a quote from the movie.
Yeah, it was. I don't think that was like a Nick Cage ad lib either. I feel like that was actually written. Like somebody's like, "What do we want Nick Cage to say?" Oh yeah, we're gonna tell him to say "Hi fucking yeah." Anyway, so then he like is conscious again, and he's in the middle of like the town square with the guy that runs this, which is a really odd looking guy, another white guy that runs this whole town. And he like reads plays while being walked or reads books while being walked around like out loud. He doesn't just read them to himself. He's standing on this like trailer,
Uh-huh.
enclosed, almost like an enclosed like theater stage on wheels, and he's reading books out loud
Yeah,
to people that will listen. And he's apparently the leader of this.
yeah.
And Nick Cage is very aggressive at this point. And they say is this the point where they talk about his thick red blood?
So this woman comes up to him and sees that he's bleeding and starts yelling about his thick red blood and it being a prophecy and time will continue. So one of the key aspects here is in this town is a demolished building with a giant clock. And a bunch of people have a rope attached to the minute hand of this clock and they're holding it back to stop time from moving.
Constantly. There's always like 12 or 13 guys on this thing. Well, probably 12 to fit with the clock theme.
Probably.
Holding this one hand back from
Mm-hmm.
moving. And every time you're in this town, it's in the background or whatever. These guys are constantly pulling against this clock.
So for the record, what I thought at this point was that this had some connection to like World War II and the dropping of the two bombs. And they were trying to make some type of statement about that and the impact it had. And I was like, okay, so let's see where they're going with that then. That's some heavy stuff that they're dealing with. And then that's not what they were doing
Not
at
at all.
all.
No, you were trying to be thoughtful, and that's not at all. Yeah, yeah, not at all what they were doing. Sadly, would have
No.
been a better movie. So then, like, he starts getting accosted by all these people trying to, explain the prophecy and everything else to him, and he just wants to find the girl because he's on limited time, and he gets in this weird ass fighting stance. So my next note is a WTF fight stance where he's got, it almost looks like, when Neo in the Matrix goes into the monkey style, maybe I know what that is. Maybe like he has like the one arm above his head and like one arm below, and he's like in his stomach, and it's just a really odd fighting stance. It's like Nick Cage saw that scene. He's like, I like that, but I'm going to do it this way because what he did was like not a fighting stance for anything ever. It was just really weird. It stood out because I'm assuming they had fight choreographers on the movies so at some point, but
Well, so I know for you, for those who might not have heard our older show, Screen Heroes, like I know Ryan, you care a lot about fight choreography, whether that's something like martial arts films or something like Daredevil. Uh, I gotta be honest, man. Like I don't know that they had a fight choreographer.
I think
Like
they did. They had some of the fights that were interestingly choreographed, and that it's not something that somebody would have just like come in on like that wasn't a choreographer and been like, we should do this.
okay,
Some of the stuff. I mean, I feel like for maybe not every fight, and I doubt there wasn't really a fight in the scene, so maybe they didn't have him on set that day. Somebody to say, hey, you shouldn't do that. But so like the ending fight scenes and some of the sword play, there was interesting things that happened with that choreography wise. So I feel like there had to have been a choreographer. Maybe not, but it seemed like there was to me,
okay.
at least for some of it. Um, so yeah, what WTF fight stance? And then I said, oh, and he found the girl already because 2 seconds later, they're like, oh, she's right over there. And then he walks over, he's like, oh, there she is.
So I do think it's worth noting that she is one of the mannequins. And why that's weird is that basically there's this dude who takes seemingly just the women and hides them in mannequin pieces. So they're like entombed inside of a mannequin in a bunch of different like
Well, they're not really, yeah, I mean, yes, they're in tune, but the pieces are like come off very easily. So it's not like they're
right.
cast into this.
But like it's implied that there's some type of power in this place and that they lose something. So Bernice has lost her voice initially.
Which is the one thing he needs to be able to get 2 extra days, of course.
Exactly. Right. And so like, but like she also like doesn't seem to have any willpower to remove the mannequin parts. And that's the scene where he gets angry with her because she won't like help him remove the mannequin parts.
So yeah, he finds basically he goes through like three different because they're all covered in these mannequin like faces and stuff, and he starts taking pieces off of them to see if one of them's her because he has this picture of her that he was given by the governor, and he finally finds her, and so he kind of like picks her up and carries her to the cart that he wheeled in on, and takes her out of the town.
Now remember, at this point, we've been told that you can never leave the Ghostland.
Right.
She will get you. Is what we were told. She will get you if you try and leave the Ghostland. I just want to point that out because that never happens.
Right. Yeah, it's like a rumor that never pays off in the movie. It's very weird. But when he gets her out to where his Celica is wreck parked, he starts taking the mannequin pieces off of her and screaming at her, take it off. Like over and over, take it off. And she's not actually taking anything off. And he's taking it all off her. And at some point he like tries to give her some water and she just has her mouth open and the water, she's not swallowing the water and it like pours out of her mouth and he starts seemingly getting aroused.
Well, we only know this because the beeping starts on his suit and that's his warning. He gets a chance to like back off before one of the little thingies blows up.
Yes. And so then I never thought I would say this in any of the movies that we watched, but then his testicle gets blown up. But not blown up, just like
blown off.
Blown off? Because then he holds it up and I think he screams testicle or something. I don't really know. He like holds
Well,
it up, and you see like there's a close-up shot of like seemingly a bloody testicle. Although if you didn't see the scene before, you might have thought it was like a bloody eyeball or something like that.
mhm. Well,
Um,
he does scream testicle in a weird way because he's trying to mimic the way the governor said it, and the governor says testicle in a really weird way.
yeah.
Like, which was not
No,
part of his accent. It was just
that's later in the movie. That is not now. He does not yell testicle right now, I don't think. I do have that as a note later in
okay.
the movie that he screams that. But
Fair enough.
um yeah. So yeah, he has his testicle blown up and we get like weird Nick Cage faces as he's like in pain and passing
And
out.
kind of like dancing weird because,
Yeah,
and
one
then, yeah,
testicle.
he passes out for a
And
while.
then we see the bank heist for probably the third or fourth time at this point. Um and this time we start to get more. Each time it shows a little bit more.
Right.
And in this one, we see that like the psycho guy kills the or shoots the kid, and then Nick Cage and Psycho start getting in a fist fight. And that was my next note. This is the slowest fist fight ever because it's like 250-year-old men are like just doing the best they can to have intense action, fighting, and it ends up being a very boring fight scene because they're both moving very slowly.
Mhm.
And but yeah, and so they stumble out into the street. This is keep in mind, this is the bank heist that got him put in the both of them put in the positions that they're in. And so they stumble out into the street, and the police or they go to run away, I think. So somehow they end up in the street, and
Yeah.
the police show up, and a crowd of people watching. And for some reason, the police start shooting directly at Nick Cage and Psycho, and the crowd is right behind them. So of course the bullets miss them and hit the people behind them.
Well,
So
Psycho
now
gets shot to death.
he not to death. Yeah. Oh, I guess he is
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah, he
But
dies.
yeah, he gets shot to death. And
But not
Nick
Hero.
and no, he runs and gets away because the police are distracted by the innocent people he just killed.
Even though at some point he gets arrested, we still never find out when.
I'm assuming we're seeing all this over and over again because he relives it every time he's unconscious or
I
sleeping or
guess.
whatever. But that's just
Because
I'm putting more into the movie than was probably
well, no, because
given.
this is another example of Nick Cage's character is a bad guy, but he's not as bad as everybody else around him. So he's the hero. So in this case, he's a bank robber. He's not like Psycho. Psycho wants to shoot kids and these innocent people. Nick Cage just wants the bank money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But this is where we find out that Sofia Boutella's character, Bernice, gets shot in that moment. So she's got a scar on her leg as an adult. And then we find out she got shot when she was like 10
Yeah, very
or
young.
something. She was pretty young. And that's when the governor shows up and pats her head with his red glove. And
Right.
we don't get to see his face because they weren't going to de-age him. So
Exactly. So then he wakes up kind of dazed and sees that Bernice is still just sitting on the cart, like waiting for him essentially. And he goes up to her angry because his testicle just got blown off and starts grabbing her and like, trying to get her to go in the car with him. And then his arm blows up.
though not as bad as the testicle situation.
No, it's just like crippled it a little bit, but he still seems to have full function later in the movie, so I don't really know. It's implied that it's supposed to disable his arm, but
his hand gets all really funky. And it's kind of hard to see, but in some of the shots when he's got his little metal arm sword brace thing, he's got like
spoilers.
but he's got like funky fingers wrapped around it,
That's true.
but he can still swing his arm around like it's fine. I don't know, man.
So then they get brought back into the town. I think Nick Cage passes out again when his arm blows up or something.
Yeah, and she starts to panic because she needs to say her name, but she's lost her voice. So she gets her voice back, and it's not working for the first few tries, but then it works.
Yes, it works. I was super worried that it wasn't going to work, but no, it worked. And so, yeah, they are back in the Ghostlands now, and my next note for that is painted picture exposition. They have a bunch of pictures painted just for this occasion so that they can explain the
Oh,
entire
right.
backstory of the city to any strangers that might show up. They can have like a little play and
Yeah,
show
the
all these
play within
pictures.
the movie, man.
Yeah, so we get painted picture exposition, which doesn't actually explain anything. I don't even remember what the exposition was about, but
It's about the building. So basically it was a plant, it was a factory that dealt with nuclear waste, and there was a truck that had a collision with a prison transport, and everybody died.
okay, that's cheerful. Um, so then we get that, and then it cuts back to the governor back at Samurai Town, having like his harem of women all around him and just having a grand old time. And he tells, I don't know, is this other person also a granddaughter? There's this other girl that's acting weird this whole movie
Right?
that he
Like,
travels with that's very close to Bernice.
yeah, it's really unclear. Like, that's Nancy is her
Okay.
name. But like none of these women are actually his relatives. These are all women that he's abducted. But
Right.
he calls Bernice his granddaughter, and Nancy is just kind of
There
there
also.
too. But she's like actively kind of cracking as the movie
Yes.
progresses.
She acts very weird. And he tells her to come sit on Grandpa's lap, which is always fucking creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that just gives you more character development for the governor. And then he has his guys make it rain on the women in jails, and it looks like American dollar bills being thrown around. So I'm assuming that they use American currency wherever they're at. It's a weird thing.
Yeah,
Not really
man.
something that we need to, not something that we need to like really dive into. Um, then my next note is Rose decapitation. So
Oh, right.
Yosujiro
Yeah.
has to punish this girl. They get information about Bernice, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. This girl tries to give information about Bernice,
Hmm.
and she can't give the information that the governor wants. And so they give her a rose, and she keeps like rubbing it on her face, and he has Yosujiro decapitate her.
Basically, like her head doesn't come off, but
Well, you don't see her head come off, but it's implied because the head of the rose comes off, and then there's blood next to it.
oh, I thought he just slit her throat.
I mean, it was a full katana slash. It seems
Okay,
seemingly. I mean,
fair enough.
but maybe I don't know why the head of the rose would come off. She wasn't holding it like directly in front of her throat, so
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
I took it as a full decapitation. But yeah, it is unclear, I suppose, on that point. And then we get to see Nick Cage. I believe at this point he's walking into town and back into Samurai Town.
Well, because they have like a montage first where they're gonna like gear up and escape
Oh
the
yeah,
Ghostland together. So they have this
yeah, yeah.
montage where they're building random stuff, and he
Armor and
asks,
cars.
yeah, he asks Ratman if he has fuel for all the cars, and I thought we were gonna have like a driving scene where like all these trucks and stuff roll into Samurai Town. None
It
of
didn't
that
even seem
happens.
like any of the people from that town came with him. It seemed like
No,
it was just him and
and Bernice.
Bernice.
But they're getting ready to leave as a group, and then the ghosts show back up, and
Yeah.
it's Psycho. Psycho's the lead ghost. He's the
And the
zombie
ghosts are
looking dude.
there's like a warlord looking guy
That's Psycho.
also that ended up being Psycho. I thought he was
Well,
just part of the gang.
Psycho is the one who's got like the zombie messed up face.
Right, which it shows, but the warlord is like usually standing on the ground while he's up like above
Oh, the guy.
in the
Yeah,
vehicle.
I mean, so what we learn is
We
that
just see
all
like
of
silhouettes of most
yeah,
of the ghosts. So the only one that ever really shows up close is the psycho guy with the messed up face.
because we learned that they were all prisoners, and that bus that they were on collided with the waste truck, and so they all died in the
Yes.
crash.
There's always
But
like a bus behind them, and that
right,
psycho guy is like driving the bus.
yeah.
And so that yeah, they all gear up, but it ends up being just
Well, because he has a face to face with Psycho, and they have a nice little
oh yeah.
chat. Psycho's all mad, but they have a little talk,
And then he forgives him,
and then all is forgiven.
as it usually goes,
You know.
when you get somebody killed. So yeah, then him and Bernice head back to town, and you get like this. I mean, a lot of this was very Western inspired, I think, because you get like the hero walking into the town to duel
Yeah.
with the bad guy, but with this you got the old one testicle limp is what I wrote in my notes, because Nick Cage is like majorly limping because he's got one testy now, and the other one just recently in the past like 2 days got blown off.
Mm-hmm. And his arm's all jacked up.
His
So he's
arm's
got
all
like this
jacked up,
weird kind of like stiff arm.
and he's got a broken old football helmet on his head.
Well, no, so he puts that on and then almost immediately takes it back off again.
Well, that's isn't that back at the Ghostlands, because
he
he has
wear
it
it
on for the fight? Yeah.
Does he? Okay.
Yes, because I
Okay.
will touch on that.
Okay.
And then we get like this weird scene where we just see like his face doing crazy things for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So my next note says Cage face exclamation point. And then the next note is nightmare face, because it starts to go really weird and it starts to be up there for so long that it stopped being exciting and started being scary.
Dude, there are so many moments that are awkward where like I'm watching this movie by myself in my basement, but I just kind of like wish I had somebody to look over to with like what the hell is going on?
Oh yeah, well I did watch it with somebody and I had plenty of those moments just for you also. I mean, I was thinking about you knowing you were watching it by yourself. So.
Thank you.
And then my next note is creepy mannequin people. I don't know what that necessarily the context of that was,
Yeah,
but I
I
think
don't
we
know.
just saw a shot of a bunch of creepy mannequin people.
Maybe.
And then we get a motivational speech. This is before Nick Cage goes into the town, I guess, because he gives like a motivational speech before they leave the Ghostlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the helmet. Okay, that's why I was thinking the
That's
helmet
when he
thing,
put on the helmet and he took it off.
And
Yeah,
then
he
he
tries
takes
it
it
on and then he immediately takes it off. And so then he shows up in Samurai Town.
Yeah.
And I don't know what prompts it, but somewhere in this moment he yells testicle in a really awkward way. I don't know what prompted that, but
because he's telling the governor that he lost his testicle.
Yeah, and he screams it for a long time, like not a short thing. And then the governor starts quoting Shakespeare, which apparently exists in this world.
Is that what he was quoting? Okay.
Alas, poor Yorick, isn't that
right.
Shakespeare?
No, I remember that now because the subtitles,
Hamlet, I believe.
The subtitles were wrong.
Oh, okay. I didn't have subtitles, so I couldn't understand like half of what Ratman was saying because he had a weird like voice modulation. Yeah, so I put here, none of the cars that were fixed during the montage are here.
None of them.
So that seems like a waste.
Yep.
And around this point, I felt like they really wanted Nick Cage to be Mad Max. They were going for that kind of vibe because, you know, if you've seen the Mad Max movies, you know that he wears leather and he's got a leg brace. So he limps when he walks. There's just a lot of similarities to Mad Max movies. It's kind of a post-apocalyptic, like desert, you know, area. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot, and they were really going for that vibe. I don't think they really got it, but whatever. I think he's wearing the helmet through all this because in my next note is that he has his helmet and the dramatic removal. And then we get like another flashback back to the Ghostlands. I think this is where things started to get a little confusing because then we got another painting exposition.
There was a second one?
Yes.
I don't remember that.
It was like I think it was a flashback to like before he left.
I think they just replayed the same scene.
Was it? I don't know. I stopped paying attention because I thought it was such a lazy way of doing it.
Yeah, I think it was just a replay of the same scene. You know, previously on.
Maybe. And so next, you might have to remind me what this is about. Did he just cause a mushroom cloud with his mind?
No. So what that was is he was putting together what happened. Okay, and realized that
the nuclear thing.
So okay, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. See, this movie is so fucking confusing. Psycho doesn't get shot to death. He gets shot and he gets arrested. He is a prisoner on that bus and he dies in the crash. The crash causes apparently a mushroom-sized explosion. And it levels the factory and everything like that. So that's when he kind of puts it all together and realizes his friend dies because he's arrested and is on that bus that ends up in the crash.
Right.
That's what it is. So he's like picturing the explosion.
Gotcha,
He realizes what happened to cause the Ghostland.
This is why we have you on this podcast, Derek, so you can explain things. I'm too stupid to figure it out. So then there's like a back and forth, you know, kind of like hero villain thing. happening between the
Literally
governor and
hero
Nick Cage.
governor.
Yeah. And yeah, my next note was that governor's dialogue is so bad. Yeah, it hadn't gotten any better at that point. It was still really terrible.
Dude, it's so bad. Cause like, you know, Hero wants the suit taken off because he brought Bernice back. I mean, which he did do.
Yeah.
And you know,
And
the
she didn't
governor,
want to go with him. She didn't want to go with the governor. So that is why he's unwilling to do it, because that's, you know, that wasn't really part of the deal, but he's trying to make it part of the deal.
well, because at no point do I recall Bernice saying, "Hey, this isn't actually my grandfather."
Right.
Like
It's just
that
kind of implied.
like we know that as the viewer because we got to see all the flashbacks and stuff.
Right.
But like I don't know that Hero ever knows that before the end of the movie.
Probably not. So they're having this back and forth, and she doesn't want to go with him, and he won't unlock Nick Cage's leather suit because she won't go with him. And then the girl that was with the governor and was cracking through this whole movie goes up to a chain gun that's casually mounted nearby and just starts riddling everybody with bullets. Like just starts spraying the crowd of everybody. Like seemingly no care about who she hits.
Well,
She's
to be
just,
fair, like I think she's cool with hitting just about anybody except Bernice. Right? I think that's the
probably
only person that she'd be upset about.
it begs a
Like,
lot of questions though. Like why is this chain gun casually mounted someplace where anybody can access it? Why is it always loaded? Why is there not somebody like, you know, supposed to watch this thing to keep any random person from just going up and doing it?
those are normal questions. This
Yeah.
also exists in a town where 90% of the people are there against their will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you would probably not put a chain gun that's freely available to anybody that walks up to it and fully loaded in a town where people that don't want to be there and want to escape might access it.
Yeah.
But that's what happens.
Makes zero sense.
So this is where the helmet comes into play. Nick Cage has his helmet back on at this point. And just like many Marvel movies and things like that, they put a helmet on the main actor so that they can put a stuntman in that costume and have them do the fight scenes because it'll look better. So, you know, we've seen Cage a lot through this movie fighting, and I would not call any of it athletic.
No.
But then he's like doing crazy kicks and like, you know, very athletic movements. When I pointed this out to the person I watched it with, she was like, "Oh yeah, it looks like a completely different person with the helmet on."
It was actually like for me, it was painfully obvious the moment they do the cut to behind him. I'm like, that's not even the same shaped person.
No, it actually fits the person that is. But yeah, if you didn't know that, yeah, watch for it in movies that like when they put when a main character puts on a helmet, they're probably going to be getting in a fight at some point, and they just didn't want the main actor to have to learn that choreography really well. It's one of the things I respect about like John Wick, for example, is that he doesn't wear a helmet. Like there's nothing to really hide the stuntman other than like clever camera work. And so Keanu has to do a lot of that himself. And there's other movies. That's just the first one that pops into mind.
Well, it's one of the reasons that like Tom Cruise gets a lot of my respect because he does just so many of his own stunts that like, I don't even know why the production companies allow it to a certain degree.
Right.
But yeah, this is clearly not Nick Cage.
Yeah, and it's when there's intense choreography like is happening, that seems to be, especially with older actors, that always seems to be what happens. But you got to like blend it, right? You can't just have one guy that's like super athletic and then Nick Cage who can not move that well anymore because it's a jarring difference. And I don't think that they wanted that, but with every other stylistic choice they made, maybe that was like the least of their concerns. I don't really know.
Well, my take on that is that they got like a legit stunt double for him, but like everybody else he has to fight are not stunt doubles. They're just like random dudes with swords. And this is where like the fighting just looks bad.
The choreography isn't terrible, but like it's
not executed well.
No, I mean, I feel like from the main actor, whoever the stuntman was for Nick Cage was pretty good. Like his stuff was well executed and clean, but all the extras were like they were in a different movie.
Right. And I think that's the real problem is that he looked really out of place by comparison to everything else around him.
Right. And at some point during this fight, it's revealed that his metal arm that he like scrapped from the junkyard has a katana blade that shoots out of it. The physics of which are never explained because it's actually longer than his forearm. Kind of like Baraka from the Mortal Kombat movies,
Right.
where
Yeah.
or Mortal Kombat games, where like the blade is. How could it go into his body if it's that long? Or Wolverine even. Like if his blades were that long and retracted back into his arm, how does he bend his elbow? That kind of thing.
It's nanites.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Ray Palmer. That's an arrow joke for people that follow along at home. But yeah, it's revealed he has a sword arm, so that's relevant because he
Yeah.
gets in a sword fight later, and then he gets kicked in the testicles, the
Well, the
testicle,
testicle. Yeah.
and we get a really long fuck when
Jesus.
when he gets kicked in the testicle. Watch for that microphone, Derek. That's
I don't usually wear a hat while we do this, so
um so this is one of the parts where one of the only interesting visuals on the sword fight. I mean, a lot of the visuals, I don't want to trash on everything. A lot of the visuals were interesting, but this is like one of the more interesting fight visuals. Nick Cage versus Yoshijiro.
mhm.
There's like I think it was like a neon cherry blossom tree of some kind
Mm.
behind them. I don't know. It was I tend to like cyberpunk looking settings for fights that just
Yeah, sure.
the way the light hits metal blades and things like that just looks really cool. And so I thought, yeah, that was interesting visually, but the fight itself was not anything crazy. It does seem like the actor that played Yoshijiro had some level of training because he seemed like he knew what he was doing throughout the whole movie. So
Agreed. But again, this was another example where like these two characters don't speak to each other, but they keep giving each other knowing looks
right,
like
it's
they
really weird.
right, but none of it's really explained. And then Yoshijiro puts his sword away, so you think it's done. Then he takes his sword back out, so
Right,
Hiro has
like,
to kill him, and it's
and
like,
he's in Samurai Town, so you kind of get the implication that he's like um I say modern, whatever time period this is in, type of samurai, right? Like he would have honor. He's doing these things for his person in command.
well,
But
he's
at this
only
point, it's like super dishonorable. You're putting away your sword and acting like you're not going to fight. Then you're going to like stab the guy in the back when he turns around or something. It's just
well, he's not like so it's revealed that he's only there because he agreed to work for the governor in exchange for his sister's freedom. And
right.
then the governor never lets his sister free, so he's just there protecting his sister, I
But working for
guess.
the governor at the
But
same
working for the
time.
governor and just killing people whenever
Yeah, and he could easily kill the governor and rescue his sister, but apparently he does not do
clearly
that.
doesn't do that ever.
Yeah. So then, that fight happens. And of course, our hero is the victor of that fight. And then it goes to, there's some other stuff that happens. I don't remember all the logistics of this. We're nearing the end.
Nancy gets
Um,
shot, but she's
yeah.
fine.
Then, yeah, Bernice at one point has like a revolver, like a
Yeah.
cowboy revolver,
Uh-huh.
and she fires 7 shots out of it, which most people probably don't care about, but it's a 6 shooter, and it made me laugh that she
One for
fired
luck.
7 shots out of it. Yeah.
Which
Um,
but what's just most distracting about that scene is not the bad math. It's the bad like squib reaction work that the governor does. Like he dies very poorly.
yes.
Each
Yeah.
shot looks like it didn't really happen. Like he doesn't know how to react to the fake getting shot. And then we don't even get to see him fall. They just do like a quick cut back and forth and he's just on the ground.
Yeah.
Like maybe this guy he's a little old. Let's not make him fall. We'll just lay him down nicely. Cut back to him. Like it was really bad. It was really
It
bad.
was. And my last note is exploding clock,
Right. Right.
which is apparently the finale because the whole movie is clock and time based.
Yeah.
Uh,
The clock
there's
is
nothing is really wrapped up other than I guess now the Ghostlands is free.
yeah, like time continues. And so the clock explodes when it reaches the top of the hour or whatever, because of course it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah, everybody's free. And then you learn that they're in Samurai Town because Hero, Bernice, and Nancy are like on like a bus bench or something. And they all look like they just realized what movie they agreed to be in. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, that's accurate. But yeah, that's basically the end of the movie. So yeah, it was something.
Yeah, that something is bad. It was bad.
Yes. I mean, I feel like there was some potential there, which is what makes me sad. I mean, the director clearly had a vision. I just think that there needed to be somebody there to tell him that he's going a little too far and we need to dial it back. Like the director had a vision that I didn't always agree with, but I respected the fact that he stuck to that vision the whole time and didn't like just try to outdo himself with every scene. This one felt like the guy was just trying to outdo himself and like make the viewer feel uncomfortable with every scene. Um, and that isn't really that impressive to me. Anybody can make somebody feel uncomfortable. It's not super hard to do.
That's fair.
And Mandy actually had a good like a plot you could follow. This one
Yeah,
didn't really have a plot you could follow. There's so much other shit thrown in that
like
just
that's
kind
the
of made it
thing.
murky.
I can explain Mandy to people. It's a weird movie. Mandy is a strange movie. Go listen to our
Absolutely.
episode on that. We go into a lot of detail there with a guest on the show and everything. But like this movie, like I've tried to explain it to my wife, and it's just like it's extremely difficult to explain to any level of detail what the hell's going on in this movie.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is just like these disjointed non sequitur situations. You know, there's the whole like, you know, like I keep going back to like, if you try and escape the Ghostland, she'll get you, she'll get you. And I kept picturing in my head, like in Left 4 Dead 2, the witches or whatever
Yeah.
they're called, right? Like that's what I was picturing. And then literally nothing happens. He has this big confrontation with Psycho, the guy who's basically dead because of him. And they don't even fight at all. This dude who murdered a bunch of innocent people in a bank and it names himself Psycho. It's just like, yeah, man, we're cool. We're cool. Everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Go on. You're good.
Right. Like it's just, and like, is this the only way out of town is to drive through where the ghosts of the Ghostland are? In that case, how would you get in and out of the town to begin with? Like you said, when does this take place? Where does this take place? How much time passes between the bank robbery and the rest of the film? Like it's just all inexplicable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So like I'm just gonna be brutally honest. I hated this movie.
Okay.
I
I mean, that's
really did.
reasonable.
I really did. I compare this movie to Eraserhead. If anybody's ever seen David Lynch's Eraserhead, both movies make equally as much sense. The only difference is that this one is at least more eye-catching because Eraserhead is all in black and white and takes place in a fairly drab environment, where this obviously is at least stylized and colorful, if you know, nonsensical. But yeah, man,
So would you rather watch this movie or Dark Knight Rises?
that's mean. Um, I would rather watch Dark Knight Rises.
Because at least there's a plot there.
There's a plot there. There's actors
Yeah,
that are doing things that are interesting. Um, yeah, I mean,
fair enough. Well, I guess we got to rate this
yeah.
thing.
All right. So here's how we do this for those who don't know. Real quick, we have a cage meter and we have a quality meter. They're both 0 out of 20, 0 low, 20 high. We rank caginess and we rank quality of the film. And so I'm gonna just kind of kick things off because I've already kind of talked a little bit about how I feel about this movie. So as far as like overall quality is concerned, I mean, I feel pushed into a corner here because clearly I was too harsh on Zondali.
Oh,
And
this is the worst movie that we've reviewed so far for you?
yes,
Wow, okay.
of all the movies, and I feel really bad because Zondali and Dog Eat Dog I rated extremely low, and I thought we had found the floor,
Okay.
and I was wrong. I was wrong. So retroactively, I would not have given those two movies a 1. I feel bad about that now. Those are incorrect scores. Maybe I'll recant those with a different score. But like I don't even know anymore how to rate these movies because I keep finding worse ones. And while we were looking, you know, so this movie got like a 4 on IMDb, and they show some other suggestions, right? And dude, Jujitsu has a 2.9.
I
which
can't wait.
right, which means like this movie's like better
I
than
can't wait. I
Jujutsu.
mean, have you read the synopsis of Jujutsu?
I saw the preview for it a while back. I'm kind of drawing a blank now.
We should probably
Um,
shouldn't go too deep into jujitsu, but yeah, it's basically allegedly about Nick Cage, who's a master jujitsu fighter that has to fight aliens. At least that's the gist I got from
yeah.
jujitsu is the only way to fight the aliens,
Uh-huh.
apparently.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that movie. But if it's worse than this, that makes it even better. So yeah, you're in a corner because how are you going to rate that worse than this if it is in fact worse than this?
Right. So like I feel stuck. Right. I feel like I've already rated a couple of movies too low and I just feel backed into a corner here. So I think what I just kind of have to do is just kind of bite that bullet retroactively and say that I'm giving this a 2.
Okay, so
And
Zandali is still worse, apparently.
Zandali and Dog Eat Dog would be a 3 in this new scale that I've learned. This is episode 19 of the show after
I
watching
think we can
19
feel
movies.
fair to adjust movies. I don't think that's a problem.
I think I have to. I think I was too harsh
I'm okay with that.
because I can explain Zondali, I can explain Dog Eat Dog, and I would watch both of those movies before I ever watch this one again. So I'm giving this one a 2 with those two movies being bumped all the way up to 3s.
I would give it
So,
a 3, so I feel like we were pretty close. I didn't think it
okay.
was as bad as you did. I don't think for me it was worse than Zondali because of the weird like sexual rapey feeling stuff in Zondali that really was,
That's bad.
at least this movie
That's
didn't
yeah,
have that.
that's fair.
And the testicle bombs and just the general caginess of this movie made it a little bit better for me. So yeah, I was gonna say 3. So I guess we're at a 2.5. So that'll still give you room
Yeah, we got a little bit
to
of
to go from yeah from that.
wiggle. I think after episode 20, maybe we can just kind of do a slight adjustment map for our Keijo
I
meter.
think that's fair.
So all right, so you were talking about caginess. Let's talk caginess. Where would you rank this as far as
I mean,
caginess
it's pretty
goes?
high.
It is.
Seeing him get a testicle blown out, not blown off, or blown off but not blown up, was not something I thought I would ever see, as well as his reaction. Plus, like the minute and a half straight cage face that we got.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I feel like this has got to be like a 15 or a 16.
Okay.
What do
Well,
you think?
which one are you giving it? 15 or 16?
I don't know. Where are you at? Let's discuss it. This is what it's all about.
Okay. All right. So mine, I was gonna put it probably a little bit up there too. I don't know that it's the cagiest that we've seen yet. You know, he's pretty cagey, of course, in Unbearable Weight. He's pretty cagey in Mandy and Moonstruck. I
Yeah,
rated him.
where did we put Mandy and Moonstruck?
So you put Mandy and Moonstruck both at 17s. I put them at 16 and 15. So we were kind of in the ballpark. You gave him a 14 in Unbearable Weight. I gave him an 18 in Unbearable Weight. So we're a little bit off there. I gave him a little bit.
To be fair, that was our first movie we ever reviewed
It
on this
was.
podcast, so things are a little odd with that.
I mean, we gave Leaving Las Vegas a 15. I feel like this is definitely more than that.
Yeah, but less than some of the other ones you mentioned. I feel like it's less cagey than Mandy.
Right. But so I think I have to give it a 16 and tie it with
So
Mandy.
we're about the same, yeah.
But so 16s for that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. So 16 on caginess, 2.5 on quality.
Yeah, that's going to be like its own category, I feel like, or it's going to be like in its own spot because most of the cagey ones we've done have been decent movies that we've enjoyed.
Right.
Well,
I know.
decent
Yeah.
movies, maybe that like Leaving Las Vegas, I didn't enjoy that much, but it was a good movie for what it was.
No, I agree. Let's kind of see. Let's see where this falls. So it gets a 2.5 on quality, and come on, 2.5 on quality, and a 16 on caginess puts it, yeah, way up. So it is the top leftmost film
What's the closest
at this
thing to
point.
it?
Let's see. What movie is that? That is, oh, there it is. Oh, Zondali.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
that's fitting, I feel like.
Zondali is the only
It had
other
some cagey
movie
stuff.
in that quadrant. So
That's funny.
So there you go. Low quality, high caginess is only those two movies right now. But I think our next episode is episode 20. Maybe you and I sit down and kind of talk about any adjustments we might want on these scores. I think that's fair. Last bit of business we have to do is add a new movie to our Wheel of Cage. We have 18 movies on our wheel. We're now removing Prisoners of the Ghostland, and we're replacing it with Adaptation.
Okay, that's a Oscar nominee, I think. I don't
I've
think
always
it's-
wanted to watch that one. I never got around to it. So that's exciting. So go to comingofcage.com to find all of our episodes and the latest spin on the Wheel of Cage to find out which movie we'll be talking about next time for episode 20 of the show. I am Derek. You can find me out on the social media verse as well. Ryan, any last words on Prisoners of the Ghostland?
Yeah. Watch it if you want to watch a really like genuinely bad, not fun bad, but very cagey movie.
Yeah, there you go. So that's it. That's us, Coming of Cage podcast, comingofcage.com at Coming of Cage. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time.